Hey everyone, it's Steve from Equinix here at KubeCon Paris, and joining me today is Andrew Block.
How you doing?
How's it going, Andrew? Why don't you tell everyone who you work for, what you do there, a little bit about yourself.
Sure thing. My name is Andrew Block. I'm a distinguished architect with Red Hat in our Global Services Office of Technology. I work in our consulting organization, working with our customers. So I'm always out in the field. I know we've chatted plenty of times. I've been on planes here and there between different regions. I'm a global resource, so I have to go between North America, Europe, APAC pretty regularly.
I was going to say, so how many days a year do you think you spend not at home?
Just not at home or at home?
We'll go for both. We can subtract from 365.
Let's go with at home, probably about 30. If that. It depends. I like getting myself out to the field because guess what? Look around us. This is where the meat hits the ground. So basically, if I don't get a chance to see it, it doesn't exist. I'm taking the Homer Simpson, Mr. Burns. If I can't see it, it didn't happen.
Nice. That's like 11. That's like 10 months of the year, and you choose to spend those 2 months at home in winter or in summer.
Well, usually it's both. I live in Chicago, and unfortunately, wintertime is a little harsh.
Yeah.
This year's going to be interesting because there is a once in a 200 year emergence of cicadas.
Cicadas?
You know what cicadas are?
Yes, I've seen the John Oliver bit.
Yes, they're very loud insects. They're coming out, first time in 200 years.
Wow.
They're going to cause deafening sounds around Chicago. I can't wait. So if you're in Chicago, don't come for the food, don't come for the arts, come listen to the cicadas.
Now, are you also in the eclipse path, or just outside?
No, we're just going to be outside. My parents, where I'm from in Buffalo, New York, is directly inside.
Well, because I'm in Toronto, and we're pretty bang on in the middle there.
Exactly. Same with Buffalo.
Awesome. Okay, let's actually get to
tech, I guess, maybe.
I guess we got to get to the tech stuff. Tell me the latest on OpenShift.
We just went ahead and released version 4.15.
Okay.
As usual with every OpenShift release, a lot of good features, a lot of new enhancements, etc.
Nice.
One of them is the GA of our Red Hat build of OpenTelemetry.
Okay,
so we're able to get a lot of more metrics around the OpenTelemetry project. Now supported that applications can integrate with very easily, so we can start understanding exactly all the metrics that are coming out of it.
Nice. Are you working on any other stuff aside from OpenShift? I know OpenShift's been your bread and butter for a while now, but are you working on anything else?
I do a lot right now, honestly, with open source. I'm doing a lot just open source in general.
Okay.
And trying to build communities, not only within Red Hat. Red Hat does a lot of great things within the community, but also being able to get out in the community more and seeing how to make projects better, make everything better.
Gotcha. You and I were talking a little bit earlier, and we'll touch back on the community stuff in just a minute, but you and I were talking just before this about OCI artifacts.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell everyone what is an OCI artifact? I think most people are familiar with the Open Container Initiative, but what's an OCI artifact, and how, what are the use cases of it?
So everyone's very familiar with container images.
Yep.
Container images are just one of the 3 pillars of OCI. OCI, as you mentioned, is the Open Container Initiative.
Yep.
However, it is only one of 3. We have the image specification, which is basically what does an image container look like?
Okay.
How do you actually go ahead and distribute it? So it's going to be the registry.
And that's the second pillar.
And number 3 is the runtime. How do I run it? So we're focusing more on the image specification. So what does a container look like? But also, how can we go ahead and put things other than a container image using the same format? And an artifact basically allows us to put any type of blob, etc., to be able to store that in a container image, in a container registry.
Interesting.
So one of the things that got me interested in this whole space is Helm. Helm is, I'm a core maintainer now.
I was going to say, you're a maintainer of Helm.
What got me into the Helm project? It was a feature that was being brought into Helm around how can I store my Helm charts as artifacts, OCI artifacts.
That's right.
So it had been in this experimental phase for about 2 years. I helped bring the community to make it over the finish line into GA. And that's what really got me into this whole space is how can we go ahead and put more into, reuse a lot of technology we already have in place in many organizations. I work in a lot of enterprises. They're not going to all of a sudden add technology here, different tools.
Right.
How can we go ahead and reuse the same tools we already have in place for different ways?
Okay. That's interesting. So you said you were a maintainer of Helm. I was a maintainer of a few different open source projects back in the day. I feel like we could talk about that for a while now.
Probably.
Do you want to share any advice for other future maintainers or things that you do to keep yourself sane as a maintainer?
Being a maintainer, you get the little title of a maintainer. Yay!
Doesn't come with any extra pay though.
No, it does not. It might be good on the CV though. But anyways, it's good for maybe a promotion here and there. But anyways, I'm a maintainer of 3 projects in the CNCF. Helm is one.
Yep.
Auras is another. It's basically it's called the OCI Registries as storage.
Okay.
It is the library that Helm uses to communicate and interact with OCI registries.
Mm-hmm.
Allows us to package it up, send it up. So you can think about how all these pieces are now coming together. I also work in the supply chain space. You mentioned another one as well. So I also contribute to the Sigstore project.
Nice.
So how can we go ahead and use security to make our OCI artifacts more secure?
Okay.
So I go ahead and use, we can then see that. And then I also have one more last connection is I'm a maintainer of the SOPs project. So SOPs is basically secure operations.
Okay.
So how do I encrypt tokens, encrypt passwords?
Gotcha.
Let's say I don't have a HashiCorp vault or a CyberArk conjure, etc. I want to be able to easily encrypt content. So you can use SOPs as a way to do so. You can just use basic GPG signatures, or you can integrate with these more enterprise stores. Either be HashiCorp, could be Azure, you name it.
So, as a maintainer, how do you balance? How do you suss out whether or not someone's PR has just been proposed, and do you work with them to get it over the finish line? Or at what point, how do you suss out whether or not it's just been proposed and they're kind of maybe a little hard to get a hold of and it's just kind of lingering there and you really want it to get merged, just think it's a good idea, but you don't want to take over it?
So a few things. One, I'd like to talk to either the maintainers of the project, because I might align with them, with the PR person. That may be someone I know. It might be someone in the community that I have no idea, never met before in my life. But what I want to do is I want to get from other maintainers, because they have their own viewpoints. What do you guys think about this? Does it make sense? Does it not make sense? And then I want to talk to the ones who actually made the contribution.
Right.
Because I want to get more of their backstory. I want to see what their mindset is, where they see it going besides, I want to just get a commit in because I want my own promotion. I want to say, okay, after you get this merged, how are you going to use it?
Right.
Because if they have no story, they just want to get it in.
Right.
So we then take it over the finish line, but then we'll put them after the fact and say, okay, now that it's in the project, how are you going to use it? How can you promote it?
And that became a big sticking point when we were working on some of the open source projects that I was working on back in the day, is that it's cool that you want to get it into the project, but you have to then also help maintain it a little bit. It's not just give us everything and we're just going to perpetually maintain it for you. You now you're part of this too. You have to also help maintain it too.
Exactly. You actually end up building a brand based upon what you either contributed or what you know.
Yeah.
You and I know this. I kind of typecasted Mr. OpenShift in certain ways. It's because I happen to be the guy from Red Hat who happens to talk open source more in the community and loves to promote the brand and promotes it out.
It's true. It's for your own personal brand. You kind of get these things out there.
I mean, working in open source is a combination of tech, but also helping build your own brand.
Yeah. It's it's interesting. That is a good way to look at it. So, quick question here. Everyone's been talking about AI. It's 2024. AI is all over the place. Are you intersecting with AI in any way so far?
We just talked about it. And it was the whole concept of OCI artifacts. Because guess what? We talked about storing Helm charts in OCI artifacts. ML models. What's the difference? They're just different binaries that we're going to push around.
But a Helm chart's in the kilobytes range, but models are can be fairly big.
They can be very big.
Yeah. So how do you reconcile that?
That's where we're working with our either the storage providers for different ways of managing storage.
Oh.
There's some different initiatives out there for how we stream data, so we don't have to pull everything down. We can do streaming, so we can start serving those models and start actually using them faster than having to download them all at once.
Got it.
So there's some different algorithms and different projects that are out there that are looking to different optimizations for how we manage that at runtime.
And now, why would you want a model on I guess it goes back to what you're saying. You just want to be able to reuse the tools that you already have.
Because think about this. A lot of the paradigms right now are, I'm going to store my AI or ML models in like an S3 bucket. Or in some S3 storage. Well, that has to go through, and I work with enterprises, an approval process. Who says they're even using S3? but what if they're using...
You want to go on this public internet?
Oh yeah, remember, S3 is a protocol as well.
That's true.
So, yes, we have S3 from AWS, but we also have S3 as a protocol in many storage providers.
Yes, it'll be like with Minio and stuff like
However, that. We're here at KubeCon. In most cases, the enterprises already have Kubernetes. If they already have Kubernetes, what type of infrastructure do they already have in place?
Okay.
A container registry.
Yep.
You can then use
they definitely need
OCI
that for
artifacts as stored in a container registry. But in addition, we had the hype cycle of last year and the year before was secure supply chain.
Yes.
We can now reuse all those same tools, same purpose. So I don't have to go buy a whole new suite of tools, new set of approval processes. I can reuse the same ecosystem.
Just kind of expanded for, and the spec, I guess, is flexible enough that you can reuse it for these things.
All it is a different type.
That's good. All right. So, I worry we're running a little close on time here. I have a few more questions here for you, though. I want to know, I've been asking some folks here, how did you get started in open source?
Honestly, we chatted about this before we started. It was actually a university course.
Okay. Which one was it? Operating systems?
No. Introduction to open source. There was
a course called that.
Introduction to open source. It allowed us to understand. This was at Loyola University of Chicago. Big up for the Ramblers. They didn't make it so hot in the tournament this year, but all props to them. But anyways, it was a course, an introduction to open source that got me into understanding what open source principles are.
Nice.
Open source contributions. I learned out what GitHub was at the time. Starting doing some basic contributions, the fork and pull model.
Okay.
And then just getting an understanding of how to start engaging with the community and what that full cycle looks like.
It's very interesting.
Got me interested into working for a company like Red Hat and seeing the value that it can provide to, as I started to work with more in organizations, on what value they can then have their own employees contribute back. I'm doing a lot more working with companies on how they can build their own open source, either program office or work more with the open source.
It's fun. It sounds like it really clicked for you after you took that course.
It totally did.
And you're like, I want to spend my career doing this stuff. And what an amazing thing is that Red Hat does that as like part of their whole ethos is everything is open.
I work with organizations across the globe, and they have developers who develop all these great tools internally. And they can do all this contribution internally, but it gets lost.
Yep.
But the thing that we need to do, and I went to another talk earlier this week here at KubeCon, is how can we go ahead and take the great work they're doing internally, don't lose the proprietary value that they have, promote it out to the community, but then have their recognition be brought back in-house.
Yeah.
So they're not losing that. They can then go for more promotions, because how can we take their efforts, help make their organizations more successful internally, so they can, organizations got to make money somehow, but then still make it so that they can be successful.
Yeah, and now we're getting into a whole discussion about licenses, legal, and OSPOs.
Exactly.
And, what's the benefit of having these things? And
I feel like we can go ahead and have 4 or 5 TED sessions afterwards on this topic.
No, that's, but no, I've seen the same thing. There's a lot of great developers at organizations all over the world, and they're doing stuff in-house that never sees the light of day.
I know, it gets lost.
Yeah, no, it's what they need for their primary purpose of, doing what they need to do for their organization.
You got to sustain a business somehow.
Yep. Anyway, back on track.
Yes.
What's one thing that you're excited to see or learn about here at KubeCon?
As I mentioned, we're all in the OCI artifact space. I am encouraged to hear others are starting to look into this problem, especially around AI. AI is the buzzword here at KubeCon this week.
I feel like it's going to be the buzzword for the next few years.
That's true. But there's already a lot of individuals who have like minds where I am thinking as well, and some of the groups I'm working on. How can we go ahead and bring those together? And I spoke at ArgoCon on Tuesday, about bringing first-class support for OCI artifacts and storing GitOps manifests as OCI artifacts. You're seeing how all of these tools are going to look at standardizing on a common way, common specification.
Nice.
I'm trying to get away from having one tool be one solution. I watch Alton Brown a lot. Do you ever watch Alton Brown,
No.
the chef?
Oh, no.
On Food Network?
You don't want to try my cooking.
Same here. However, he has a saying, there should be one unitasker in a kitchen. You know what that is?
What is it?
A fire extinguisher. You should have a multitasker for everything else. How can we go ahead and use the same technology, same concepts for multiple use cases?
Nice.
And paradigms.
Last words for anyone listening. Anything you want to give a shout out to or anything like that?
Obviously, for those of you who are trying to get into open source, get into the community, we need help, especially for a lot of open source projects. Get involved, join public community channels wherever you can. I'm happy to help. Reach out to Steve, reach out to myself. I'm on GitHub, I'm on Twitter, you name it. Reach out. I'm happy to have a conversation with you and see how you can be successful in open source technology.
All right. Thanks so much, Andrew. Pleasure being with you today, sir.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.